Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about the anti-SJW movement and how that sort of developed, my thoughts on it, and different things related to that. And basically the point of this video is to kind of give a critique of that movement and discuss where those guys went wrong and where they're at now and kind of why it fell off. So the anti-SJW movement was definitely very big around the time of Trump's election. It's around the time that I got into politics. It was when those people would make all these videos talking about like, oh, there's only two genders, and like red pilling people like, oh, there's only two genders. There's no problem with police and blacks, and like it'd just be all the stuff with social issues like, oh, white privilege isn't real, all those sort of things, or the wage gap is a myth. Those type of it's all that type of content and piled into one. And there is aspects of good in that, since generally the people who argued for that sort of stuff were like, no, we don't need the government involved in these type of things. And that ultimately led to me being interested in that type of content and watching that for a while. I mean, that was kind of what got me into politics. However, this movement kind of has developed more into the modern like right-wing movements, and like a lot of the people in that have become a lot more of the nationalists of today. And the same people who like, and well, I guess nowadays for the people who are like getting into politics, it's still the same sort of talking points, like the free speech stuff. That's always a big one. The like misunderstood free speech that people come in with. That's like, oh, free speech is an absolute, so we need to censor these social media companies, or we need the government to control these social media companies. That's kind of what I've seen the anti-SJW movement develop into over the past couple of years, just because a big part of that anti-SJW stuff developed into like, oh, conservatives are being censored by social media. But I mean, we can't really, these are private companies, so we can't get the government involved. But over time, these premises led to them wanting to get the government involved more and more. And that's largely what we've seen from that movement. So I don't think that movement has gone anywhere good. And it's still like very, very basic cringe talking points. That's basically what the anti-SJW movement always was. It was just these very basic political talking points that were very right-wing in nature, and kind of a response to what these people felt like was an attack on white males for whatever reason. That's essentially how people felt. It was absolutely absurd, because there were aspects of what the SJWs were pointing out that was absolutely true. There is a problem with blacks and police officers. The gender theory stuff, there's aspects of that are true. There is an extent to which homosexuality, there's an extent to which there's some sort of oppression, some sort of negative views on that in the culture. There is an extent to which women are pushed away from more STEM fields, although I don't think that we should push them towards STEM fields either. I think just let the free market work, let whatever happens. That's my general view. But the sort of things that I saw in the anti-SJW movement was just people who didn't want the government to get involved, and they also were people who were very good at painting the opposition as basically just a bunch of crazy people. They would always point to like these screaming blue-haired dykes at like after Trump's loss, just screaming and crying, and it's like, this is the left nowadays. Do you really want to be part of the left? And it's like, oh shit, this is the left, bro. Like, I don't want to be a part of that. Or, oh, these people are censoring free speech by protesting speakers and trying to shut them down. And I mean, that was always like a big thing back then. It was like, yeah. Which to an extent was kind of a problem. I mean, if you got invited to a private place and people are like, without permission, are coming in and trying to shut you down, that's definitely a bad thing. But if they're allowed to protest there, they can protest there. Also, you're not entitled to a platform either. That's something that people don't seem to understand with free speech. I'm kind of jumping all over the place. So back to the anti-SJW sort of people. These people would always try to portray the crazy people as the norm. So the people that are like, oh, there's 72 genders. That's not really a major talking point with gender theory and things like that. That's generally not a large talking point. There's credence to this idea of gender being a spectrum, I mean, you can watch my video where I explain that. I think it's called like the proper view of gender. I'll link that in the description for those of you who want to see that. There's credence to that idea, and there's a lot of different things that the SJWs would try to talk about, but then these anti-SJWs would basically shut down any sort of listening to these people by attacking the crazies in the group. That would the feminists who actually hate men, or the black nationalists who were part of BLM, or in BLM they'd point to like all the super violent protests, and then you get this idea of like, oh, all these protests are violent. I mean, it's absolutely absurd. And these people, they didn't really have that much evidence to back up a lot of what they talked about. They had a lot of anecdotes, they had a lot of emotions, but they didn't actually do much research. They didn't actually understand the topics they were talking about. I mean, you could absolutely see this whenever you watch a sort of debate between one of the anti-SJW types and like Destiny. Destiny would just destroy them. I mean, when it came to these social issues. For me, I was always fairly sympathetic to a lot of their talking points, though, because I thought that, if you can't believe these things and you still want small government, you can't believe in the things that SJWs believe in and still want small government. However, that's simply not true. I mean, if you look at, your Ron Brooks still talks a lot about like problems with women in modern society. Rucka talks a lot about police and blacks, those different things relating to some of the institutional problems with, or some of the institutional oppression of black people. I mean, that's definitely a problem. I mean, just look at the sentencing differences between crack and cocaine, or the fact that more white people smoke weed at higher rates, but black people get arrested for it more. I mean, these are real statistics that you can actually look at. So I don't think that there's this dichotomy between believing in more, or having more progressive views on social issues, and believing in free markets, believing in capitalism, or small government in general. I don't think there's a dichotomy between those two. And for those reasons, I mean, I am very much someone who has very progressive views on a lot of social issues. You can, watch my proper view of gender video. But I think a big issue throughout with this anti-SJW movement is just simply not understanding the other side on these issues. They look at all these like crazy people, and they just strawman the other side with all this stuff, even when there's some credence to these ideas that this other side has. These people are actually very, very good at getting people interested in politics, or they're very good at convincing people who are very new to politics, because it's very easy to digest their points because they're very simplistic. They don't require a lot of research and a lot of thought, because, this is just like, these people who are giving these ideas are people who just got interested as well, and they're just like, see all these crazy people, and they're like, what the fuck, is this what the left is? And then they'll like laugh at it and make fun of it, and ultimately they make fun of ideas that have some credence, but they make fun of the worst advocates of them. I actually watched a really interesting video relating to this by Rationality Rules. I don't agree with a lot of what that guy says. I don't watch a lot of his content either, but what I've seen, I'm not necessarily someone who would say, oh, this is a guy that you should watch a lot of. But I think he had an interesting video on, he called it the nut picking fallacy. So that was an interesting video. Maybe I'll link it. I'll probably, you guys can search that one. I don't know if I want to like link his videos in my description if I don't agree with that much of what he says, because I don't want to like cite him as a source if I don't agree with him on a lot. But I think that's a big issue with the anti-SJW types, and it's a big reason why they ultimately fell off, because they ultimately didn't offer anything. They just offered shredding these people who don't actually hold an ideology that a lot of people believe in, I guess. They just shredded those people and didn't really offer anything new. And by shredding a lot of these people, and especially shredding a lot of the like immigration type stuff, which is ultimately what some of them went into, they led to a lot of nationalist sentiment, because they would just get rid of the left, and then these people would drift over to the right and see nationalism. So then they'd so we got more of a movement towards nationalism. So this is a big problem with the anti-SJW people, is that they led to a rise in nationalism. So yeah, they also led to a lot of like the classical liberal types who are like obsessed with this weird idea of free speech that isn't very well defined, or like the principle of free speech, which, yeah, it's stupid. They basically have this idea that that everybody should be given a platform, and Twitter's like a public space or whatever. It's stupid. Twitter's a private company. They're providing you a platform at a cost to them, using their own minds to create this platform. So they get to choose who's on it. I mean, that's simply the case. There's no like principle of free speech here. If they want to ban you, they can ban you. And I see no problem with that. It's their property. But yeah, those are kind of the two branches that this anti-SJW movement branched into. It was the nationalists and the classical liberals. I mean, whenever someone uses the term classical liberal, you can tell that they're not someone who's as educated on politics. Because I mean, it's like they just got into it, basically. That's my opinion on what the term classical liberal refers to. Is just people who just got interested in politics and have all these talking points, so just like ingrained in them very well, and they didn't actually think that much for themselves. They just got a lot of talking points ingrained in them by like Dave Rubin or Jordan Peterson and those sort of people. So yeah, that was kind of all over the place, but I think I had some decent focuses in that video, just a general overview of this anti-SJW movement and my reflections on it. So yeah, I think that's all I have to say for today. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video. Peace.